through thick and thin, up markets, down markets, crisis markets. You've held up, weathered the storm, and battle tested the infrastructure. Whereas a BlackRock and Invesco and all of the big traditional firms have not had that experience. They have not. So maybe, Ophelia, you can tee up some of that. What have they not gone through that you had to weather from an infrastructure point of view that they will face in the future?
Yeah, and while you're doing that,
So the way we set precedent, we're much more careful about.
I would say there's also a mindset difference. Just in the last few days, the SEC basically has denied the need for regulatory clarity at all. Coinbase had asked for it, and they, of course, are going to appeal that decision. But the SEC is repeating once again, no, the regulatory structure we have in place is fine for crypto. And this also happened when derivatives became a question, and the SEC and the CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, started bucking heads against this idea that one had control versus the other. And ultimately that went to the Supreme Court. To Ophelia's point, it took many years, and in 2000 there was a decision, I think it was 2000, there was a decision that gave both of them jurisdiction and was very clear about which had jurisdiction over what and what they both had to agree on. So I think there's been an anticipatory move that there is an appetite. So that's one reason the price has been quite firm here. And so I will say when a spot Bitcoin ETF is approved, because I think the probability is, well, we think it's 95% now, if not higher.
Wow.
Yes.
Specifically in the early January window, or just,
we think it's very high. Ophelia, you might have a lower odds here. I don't know, but all the signals are, it could still, there could be still some details which would force the SEC, our ARC 21 shares deadline, January 10th, is the forcing function here. And is there a scenario where the SEC would come to all of us in line and say, okay, we've just discovered this, we didn't know about it, we would like you to, or we would like to push all these decisions back up to them? I don't know, but so far, so good. I don't think, I know that the cash versus in-kind, create and redeem, is an issue here, but, and we can talk about that later, but I think a couple of things happened, especially something 5 years ago in 2018. In a broad-based portfolio to Bitcoin, if you want to, this is as of last year, we're about to publish new numbers, but as of last year, if you wanted to minimize volatility, the optimal weight of Bitcoin in your overall portfolio would be 2%. If you want to maximize your Sharpe ratio, so your return per unit of risk, then the number is closer to 6%. And this kind of makes sense because I remember other new asset classes, real estate, very early in my career. So 70s and 80s, real estate was the new asset class. And institutions started with a 1% allocation and then gradually moved up to that 5-ish%, maybe above. And then emerging markets, when that became a category, because it wasn't one emerging market at a time, but it was a category, a new category. Again, started with 1 and moved up to 5%. That, we believe, is what is going to happen here. And I think the fact that we and others are educating institutions that, wait a minute, this is mathematically metered to go up to 21 million units, and we're at roughly 19.5 million. The scarcity value is already showing itself, and with institutions starting to push in those periods since its inception, it's the top performing asset out there. So institutions cannot dismiss it unless unless they think there's they know something that nobody else knows, and I doubt they do, about the underlying technology. Even the risk of a hack, teaching them about, okay, this is the base layer hacks have been de minimis. Philia, correct me. It's the layer ones. It's it's not the base layer, it's the layers on top that have been hacked effectively. And once they understand that, they have to step back and reassess it, because, base layer Bitcoin is where they will have the exposure, right? In cold storage. It depends on which issuer, but again, the SEC is really thinking about the retail investor. If it's safe enough for them, then institutions certainly should not dismiss it as a new asset class. I think the seal of approval from the SEC, especially given how vociferously the SEC who has said, I think has made incorrect observations. We know the people in the research department at the SEC, the crypto research department, they are very good. They know what they're talking about. And I think some of what we've witnessed out there has been much more political in nature than grounded in fact, but it has confused and obfuscated. And institutions do not want to get in the way of that kind of dogfight, right? Now they've got the judicial system on their side. Okay, check. Legislative side is starting to move in the right direction. So these are all sources of confidence, I think, for the institutional investor, which is a very conservative, and in the process they too will learn how to say it better during their next client meeting. So we've been doing this with Resolute Art Partners since 2016, and I remember the primary ETF specialist at the time, she said, before she read Big Ideas, she said, I had to, or when she read it, I had to go look up, as I was on my way to this meeting, what Bitcoin was back in 2016, right? And here she was then going to be asked in the Big Ideas Forum, which was going to be a few weeks from then, not only asked about it, but we need to explain it. And that can be daunting. And do you remember when you first came upon Bitcoin and you're saying, okay, wait, what is this? Mm-hmm. And really tried to understand it and explain it to someone? It took a few times, right? And he did, and they directed him to FASB, and he did a very good thing for Bitcoin in terms of now it is not considered an intangible asset, and there will be mark to market, so much healthier treatment. So, I think they've been. I think they've been forthcoming in their interest in understanding both Bitcoin and Ether, and pretty intensive in their study of it. So I will, Ophelia is the odds maker on this one, but I would agree with her. It's probably a go in 24.